Hello and welcome back to the Demis Hellen channel. We are back with another Arpeggio episode. This is episode number 10 for October, and there is a bonus video over on Patreon where I'm going to show you how to make the counter melody. So if you want to see that, you can join and you get a load of perks and early access to videos and resources like the MIDI from this particular video, which will be available on Patreon. Alright, so now we know what we're listening to. Let's have a look at the chord structure and then the pattern, and then we'll just build it as the video goes along. If you're a Patreon supporter, you can just download this MIDI, but otherwise, if you're not, you can just follow along and copy the MIDI as we go. So let's jump into the chord structure first. So you can see here, I've just quickly and crudely bunched up the chords, and we are working in F sharp minor in today's video to get this sound. You can compose in A minor if you want to, as usual. But we've got an F sharp minor to start with. Let's just zoom these in a smidge. And then, let's make sure you can see. And then we've got an E chord, a B minor, a D chord, and then back to a B minor. And that's going to create a little bit of tension at the end. That's what that is for. Sometimes you'd be tempted to sort of go to the next chord in the sequence after this D chord, which would be an E, to come back round to the F. So it's sort of like ties it back round nicely, but we've already got the E chord as the second chord here. So I've gone for this B minor to create some tension. And for those that are new to the Arpeggio series, the quick way we can identify these minor and major chords: minor have 2 note gaps between the first 2 notes of the triad, and major has 3 note gaps. I was losing my train of thought. So you can see this is a minor, major, minor, major, minor. All right, so let's delete. In fact, let's copy these over. In fact, let's just bring this over. I've already got the pattern laid out here over the bars, and you can see that we're working with this. So we're just going to highlight one bar. So what you can see here is we're working with an 8th dotted rhythm, and then the second part is slightly offset. So if you was to look at this in an 8th dotted grid, which is here, you can see it hits the 8th dotted rhythm there, but then this one is slightly off by a 16th backwards in that dotted rhythm, but that ties in nicely because we're working in a 16th rhythm. So you can see there, we've got a nice sort of circulation. It kind of gives that tripping feel to the melody. Let's undo that till we get this back. There we are. I've just copied this pattern because we use it throughout the entire sequence, and the first 4 bars start on these notes. And then we just rise through the scale. So the next note is this one, which is a G sharp, and then an A. And then we start to stray away from this. So the next 2 notes here is going to be the B and this G sharp. And what that's going to do is it's going to make it sound a little bit off until we add the bass notes in. But have a listen to how this goes. So it sounds a little bit off, and that's because for this next section, it goes back down to this G sharp. And then I can hear it going higher. So I'm not really following any rules. I'm just following how my mind progresses that particular melody. So I know it's not going to be the next one because it sounds a little bit too weird. It's just a little bit, it's laboured. So I'm going to go for B. And then you can hear this is going to go one more note following the same sequence like that. And then you can hear it's going to go higher again for that second portion. So really all I'm doing is just following how this sounds. So for the next 4 bars, I'm going to put D in there. Let's see how that sounds. So it's hitting the right one. However, we need to change these chords at the bottom. And we're going to go for the B and D. I'm just going to check my reference material here just to make sure I'm doing this right yet, because I haven't memorized this melody. And you can hear it just wants to go down. Sometimes you might hear it go somewhere else because you're not familiar with the melody. That's part of your intuition and what you interpret what should be happening. So you can hear now it's going to fall. Now I can hear it going down lower. Now I don't know if that's exactly right, but we'll go with the flow. And then finally, we're going to return this chord to here, but we're actually going to drop just the bottom note here down to A. And from what I remember, yes, it's back to the F sharp here. And then it starts rising back up like it did at the beginning. Okay, so I'm just going to change this out here. I think I use these two notes here to sort of push this up. Something like that, I think. That's something close. I can't remember exactly what I did here. Let's just try A there, actually. So I'm going to take this bottom note here, transpose it up one, and just drop it one note so it gives that nice little sort of like roll of notes upwards. Just wonder if that should be there. Okay, we'll leave it there for now, but let's go back to the first bar and add those bass notes in. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill the gaps between these. So we know it's a repetition, each section, so we can just draw the first part and then copy that across. So we're going to start on the F minor, obviously the F sharp minor, and you can see now this next note needs to fill the gap. So I'm going to do 1 octave lower, which is here. In fact, sorry, here. Now you can hear it's got sort of like a bit of pace. It wants to go somewhere and makes the whole thing sound faster. So you can see there's a 2-note gap again. So I'm just going to copy those across. And you can choose these to go upwards. You could start on the lower and then the higher octave if you wanted to for the bass. It's entirely up to you. Then I'm going to copy that pattern across. And then we can just copy that to there. And we've got the first bar of pattern. Beautiful. What I'm going to do is make these a little bit smaller so we get a bit of syncopation from here. And then I will cut to these all copied across, and then we'll change the bass notes depending on what the chords are. And voila, we have now got all of these notes in place. So you can see now the whole pattern is ready to go. So let's move these notes accordingly. What we're going to do is reference our original chords. So you can see we've got an F sharp minor, then we go down to E, up to B, D, B. So we're going to take these 4 bars here and we're going to put these down to E like that. So we should get this. So you'll hear this chord structure change now. Without those there, it sounded a little bit off. It just sounds like a sort of like nothing chord, but adding that extra E in there. So now we're actually using an E chord, even though these have moved up, you'd suggest we was going for that G minor there, that G sharp minor, but we're not. We're going for the E major. So naturally, you'd probably go downwards, but this melody wants that bass to go upwards. You can just hear the natural progression needs to hear a bit of elevation. So let's get that back there. And that's going to emphasize this chord change now, where we go down to D, I think. And then this goes back up to B to create tension. Just need to get that looped right. So this one definitely needs something to rise up there. Let's hit the F minor at the end and the E maybe here. That'll do. That sounds good. So this note is incorrect. So looking at my reference, we're just one note out in the scale, I think. So at the moment, it's a little bit limp is the word I'm going to use for that. So we're going to have a bit of a bigger jump. Much nicer. Okay, so let's take a look at the reference material. Just give me 2 seconds here. So we're just introducing that half step in there to just make it sound like it's moving a lot more than it is. So then we just place that E on the top, which is the natural progression back through to that F minor chord, F sharp minor. And there we are. But now you can hear when we put that in context with our track. So this is exactly the same melody. Let's go here. Just make sure your ears or your microphone, make sure your headphones are turned down. I'm just going to turn the tal. So like I say, if you want to see that counter melody, you can consider becoming a patron and you'll get to see how I've made that as well. And all of these sounds, I forgot to mention at the beginning, are from Silent Trance Essentials, which is out now on the website. And there is a special discount code here on YouTube, so don't miss it because it's only available for 2 days.